your seats.
We're over there.
So we can get started. We have an extraordinary morning, and I don't want to waste a single moment.
Yeah, that's been a couple of years.
Good morning.
Hello.
Hello, hello, guys.
Today we gather here on Treaty 6 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis. The time we are sharing this moment is a testament to our ongoing treaty relationship with one another. And I'd like to begin by introducing you to my friend, Cece Baptiste.
Good morning, everybody. This is my friend, my dear friend, Heather Fenias. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge some special guests that are in the audience. The Honorable Don Morgan, Attorney General of the Province of Saskatchewan, His Worship Mayor Charlie Clark, the Chief Commissioner of the Saskatchewan Human Rights Commission, Judge Dave Arnott, the Directors of the Public and Greater Catholic School Systems, Barry McDougall and Greg Shatlin, the Chairs of the Greater Catholic and Saskatoon Public School Boards, Diane Boyko and Ray Morrison, and of course, a dear friend of mine, our Elder Maria Linklater. So why are we here today? And why are Heather and I up here supporting this great event? Conversations such as this mean a lot to Heather and I want to take this moment to tell you why. Heather has very close connections to the atrocities of the Holocaust. One of her grandfathers, who was born in Poland, was able to come to Canada with 2 siblings, but lost the rest of his family in the Holocaust. Add to that, both her mother and her father-in-law were Holocaust survivors. Her mother-in-law was a Wallenberg child, and her father-in-law's brother was shot in a mass grave a week before the war ended. As for myself, I typically introduce myself as an intergenerational survivor of residential schools. 3 of my 4 grandparents attended these schools, each of them for an average of about 10 years each. So that's 30 years amongst my grandparents. This has had a tremendous impact on my aunts and my uncles, my parents, myself, and my siblings. I have felt personally the shame, the intergenerational abuse, and yet my grandparents also taught me the power of standing up against what is not right, because that is what they did. Both Heather and I have felt the responsibility to support the survivors in our communities. It has made us more aware and sensitive to supporting other cultures and ensuring that survivors' stories are heard, so these horrible acts are not repeated again. It is our legacy, and we continue to advocate for our families and the loved ones that did not survive.
Have you ever had a time where you tell somebody a really special story about yourself and they say, "I know exactly what you mean," and you think, "That's not possible. There's no way you could know what I mean"? Well, today we're here to learn how 2 men with very different stories can share such a profound and deep understanding of the other. We all love to make connections. That's one of the best parts of being human, linking ourselves and our experiences to things and people around us. Today we have the responsibility to look carefully for the parallels, but it's also our job to be aware of the particularities of each of the stories. These 2 men have both lived through incomprehensible experiences, but we can't look back and bunch them together in our minds. Each stands on their own as an unforgivable event. They're distinct and they're different. Through these remarkable men, however, we see how human connections are universal. It's the way we love, remember, celebrate family, react to loss, navigate unthinkable circumstances, and through the strength and resistance and resilience of the human spirit, where we find the parallels. I challenge each of your brains and your hearts to find these parallels. And when you get goosebumps today, because you find that connection, that's your true moment of understanding, the one you take home with you and use to inspire hope and change. That's your starting point. That's your personal call to action. And the next time a friend tells you that they understand, think of it as an opportunity to consider what makes us unique and distinct while celebrating the many ways we connect as humans. So I'd just like to take a moment to outline the order of events this morning. Cece and I won't be coming up, and we'd like to just invite the speakers to come one after the other. And I'm very proud. I will first be welcoming Elder Maria Linklater, followed by Rabbi Claudia Jodorowsky, who will each bring us welcomes through prayers and words. And then following their greetings, we invite you to direct your attention to the screens for the introduction of our main event. So now I'd like to invite Elder Marie Linklater.
As our elder makes her way up the stage, I just want to acknowledge that she is also a residential school survivor, so we're incredibly honored to have her here, as well as my relative here, Delvin, to come and help. Thanks much.
I hope I can hear it. It's like the mic's not very bad.
They don't use the mic usually when they pray, but she might.
Is this on?
Is the mic on?
Yep.
Is it on?
Hei hei kat Leipciger kiranaskum tinga kyogi go tsiumakiska ogubina mitsataisino ke pentuta ke gawassak kete ekmina tan gini bote pues que spaiki goma kai mutama kato ki ba tuta me kama mo kama to magamina ko e ba ktamagi to a ke wichi to ha ga Leipciger magita unan nistana nek tmaksha taisini mo ektumag na ko chike magita keta me ko mage a kame mo a ke wichi so ya ke ga pchita matsu ga ki wi ya ko mages kana magusia ka kame mo a ke wanan magapchita Ego minä taas sinänak minä, jos sinänak dans kita pannanak, ego awassa ka penokussik, kikeks grammo ajako, pames karakataskia, osame kaiks grammo ajako, eu jäi mitsikute nigani, kikovani huok, muikaks keitmakki vai takotsik, maaka kispen grammo ajako, kattavahki vai nigani, muegi koko visek teho, tapskutsiko nieran. Wisak tehe on ai meitä mone puhtata ja näin ottamaan kevanan osaamikin mai tuota kauja. Mä katsipoko. Kattoakin voin katutenan. Kami jostain ja niinän skeittenan tanssikin jostain mukatats. Aujekoa viittamaan koja. Keittiin minä näkö viittamaan konana. Mä kannan askuman. Katto Leipciger kira askum tilka joki voiotse. Sauemme kavassak niistä minä sauemnan. Suksu on minän. Eikä kiitti meitä maakoma matsuun ja haimakkuuttelemaan. Kiko itse tässä ja keksillä magia. Nanas komana kiko otsi. Hei hei.
Hei hei.
Rabbi Claudia.
And so the rabbi.
She prayed for us that we'll be strong today. She prayed for us so that we'll be strong today. To talk about the very difficult times in our life. That's what she was saying. And that these young people never have to see what happened to us.
Good morning, my name is Claudio Jodorowsky, and I'm the rabbi of Congregation Agudas Israel. With the permission of Father David Tumbach, the priest of this holy cathedral, and on behalf of the Jewish community of Saskatoon, I would like to thank Think Good, Do Good, and Consensus for organizing this event, and for the privilege we will have today of learning from the life experience of two real heroes. Nate Leipciger, who survived the Holocaust, and Eugene Arcand, survivor of residential schools. Jews and indigenous peoples, we share many elements of our cultures. Values like the transmission of language, the family as the pillar for the preservation and perpetuation of our culture, the importance of an oral tradition which is transmitted from generation to generation, and the value we give to land. And we also, fortunately, are united by unique experiences of persecution, forced assimilation, and the challenge of learning how to recover after a genocide. This shared experience creates a powerful link between us, which forms a place from where we can build solidarity and mutual understanding. I am a third generation of Holocaust survivors, and I have personally experienced what trauma means for survivors and for their families. I have also listened to the testimony of descendants of residential school survivors, and I have always been impressed by the similarities of our experiences and challenges. We both have heard in many occasions people telling us it's time to get over it, that we have to forget. And we also feel lonely when we realize how difficult it is for some to understand that healing is a delicate process that requires truth, justice, and reparation. That's why this conversation we are about to witness is so important and a powerful example for every one of us. It teaches us that common experiences can bring us together, that we can learn from and help each other to face the challenges of the past, the pain, the disappointments, the open wounds, and how to find healing. Jews, we feel the responsibility to repair the world, to address injustices where we live. As Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, a champion of human rights, once said, "In a free society, some are guilty, but all are responsible." The Jewish tradition commands us to pursue a more just country. Therefore, we have a responsibility to work in partnership with indigenous communities to repair damages done. This event sets an example and reminds both traditions that we must work more on education, building bridges starting from our similarities of our cultural experiences, celebrating the differences that makes us unique, and the diversity that enriches us all. In a text from the Mishnah, a Jewish legal code from the 2nd century, the rabbis discuss the creation of humanity, and they ask, why God decided to create first only one human being? And they answer teaching that the reason is that nobody could say, my ancestors were more important than yours. According to the Bible, we all come from the same human being, Adam, who received that name because he was created from Adamah, earth in Hebrew. As we descend from one person, we also come from the same earth. And this is not an historical statement, but a moral one. It teaches that we are all brothers and sisters. We can be different, but our value is the same. in the eyes of God. There is no justification for oppression or persecution. May Nate and Eugene inspire us today to never forget that statement so we can work together to build a better, inclusive, and respectful society. We ask God to send us peace and to send us healing. Ose shalom bimromav, ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל. May the one who makes peace in heaven make peace for all of us and for all who dwell on earth. Amen.
Thank you for those wonderful opening words and thoughts. And again, if I hadn't said it already, thank you to everybody who's taken this morning to come with us. And now I'd like to ask you to join me in welcoming our fellow survivors here, Eugene Arcand and Nate Leipciger.
We're your personal escorts.
Like this? Or like this?
You can carry me up there.
So there's one. Okay. So I'm just going to explain the format. Cece and I have a few questions that we hope to get through and ask of each of these gentlemen, and we're going to take turns giving them a chance to answer. The direction of the morning and the way things go is 100% in the hands of these two men, so all of us here are on the same ride together, so thank you. We thought we would begin, and I'll begin by asking Nate. So, sorry, all good?
The video?
Oh, you're right. We forgot the video. Good job. Thank you.
Thanks for reminding us.
Thanks for reminding us. We're going to sit here while they're going to play the video.
I had done everything to forget and put all of that so deep that it's been difficult to remember in a short period of time what you spent a lifetime trying to forget.
You are now in a concentration camp. This is not a sanatorium. And if you behave and you do what you're told, you have a lifespan of 4 months. I was 11 years old. I was curious enough and mobile enough that I would run through the streets and see what was happening. Of course, when the Nazis marched in, we all marched to the main street to see how they paraded into the lodge with their big tanks and armor and personnel carriers and the soldiers marching in unison. And it was a very wonderful display of arms and manpower had it not been for the fact that these were our enemies. They were occupying our country.
I remember spending time with my grandparents, especially I remember times with my uncles. Caboose rides to Blaine Lake, you know, this, to me, was New York City. Hay rides, just being free, picking berries, just experiencing life on the prairies, and just enjoying life, and speaking our language, and just easy living from what I remember, and with lots of love and hugs. Horrific. It was a time that I recognize today as the beginning of an odyssey of indoctrination with genocidal practices on my space, my people, and It was an experience I wouldn't wish on anyone.
And we were marched through the street, and we saw people, Polish people, standing on the side of the road, watching us march out. Some, mainly the women, cried as they saw us march. And the kids still jeered with us. They said, Jews out, goodbye, Jews, go to Palestine, or away with you guys. We were taken into a big block, like a big warehouse, and we were told to undress. They shaved our hair. They disinfected us. They put a number on my arm. I lost my identity. I lost my clothes. I became a number.
We have found in the area of over 5,000 children never making it home. So there's not very many of us left across the land, considering the amount of people that went to those schools, in excess of 150,000 people through a number of generations.
I always felt that maybe they come back. I was, long after the war, when I was living in Germany, and I saw a woman of my mother's stature and walking down the street, and I saw her gait, I would run after her in the hope that it was her.
There's a whole sphere of existence there that I never got to experience and appreciate as a child, and it's been destructive to my people. Not as many as I would like who have experienced the horrors of residential school are prepared to speak about their experience, having experienced genocidal practices. It's my duty.
What I'm doing is important. I have to do this for them, to teach them, to tell the world what happened to us. And my time is running out.
I think we all need just a second after that powerful introduction. So I would like to begin, and I'll address it, the question to you to Nate answer, and then Eugene invite you. I'd like you to give us an opportunity to tell us about your families and perhaps something before residential school, before the Holocaust, and what it felt like, that moment of separation, that you were separated from your family.
As I indicated in the video, I started when I was 11. But the relationship with myself and my family, which consisted of myself and my sister, of course my parents, my grandparents, many cousins lived in the same city, many uncles and aunts. We were a very integral and connected family of many individuals, and this all ended up in one swoop in 1939 when our family was separated from the rest of the families. And then, of course, the worst separation occurred in 1943 when we were rounded up by the Nazis. We were forced into a railroad car, which was a boxcar, where there was no seating room, only standing room only. And we were together with my mother and my sister and my father. And the four of us huddled together because we felt that as long as we were together, whatever happens to us, if we're together, it will mitigate the hardship and whatever we were to expect. And these were the last moments that I spent with my family. And then, of course, the train arrived in a location that we did not know where it was. We were greeted by shouts and dogs and people in Nazi uniforms and striped uniforms. We were ordered out, and I stood with my mother and my sister by the railroad car, trying to stay together, when my father ran over to me and says, "You come with me, you with the man." They separated the women from the man, and any boy over the age of 12 or 14 was supposed to go with the man. At that time, I was 15, and my father rightfully took me over to his side. And then, a few minutes later, my father was asked to line up people that were sent to him, and I was sent over to the other side of the selection area. And I was standing with my cousins, my older brothers, my older uncles, and I was trying to ascertain as to what was happening at this moment. And I noticed that my mother and my sister were in the distance together with young people, and my father was, of course, with the young people, and I was with the rest of the population. And I had no fears because I knew by that time I was already working as an electrician for 3 years, and I was self-sufficient. And that's the moment of separation. And I'll tell you the rest of the story later.
Nigan nas komunista utawino utepet ipet otai ko agota nas komamina ya Maria e wadau de nuskapeo kapichi tasu e gaki ogota gaki momota gastache. I acknowledge the Creator for bringing us all here together, and thank Maria and the Euskapeo and all the people who were involved in bringing this event together. And especially the young people. I'm so grateful that you're here. That day in 1958 was the beginning of a daily threat of physical, sexual, psychological, and emotional abuse. It was a time of loneliness. It was difficult to try and comprehend being taken away from your community and from your home at 6 years old and put in a totally alien environment full of especially physical abuse when we spoke our language. We were indoctrinated to pray in a foreign language, which was Latin, and we struggled to learn English. I can't say that any part of the next 11 years for me was about family. It was all about animal instinct survival behaviors. And we became very good at it. But those are all learned behaviors that affect my community today. And that's why I'm so happy that young people are here to listen to both Nate and I, and thank the school boards for bringing this together, because those learned behaviors are still in our communities. They're still in our community here in Saskatoon. And it gives me hope when young people come and accept the challenge of listening to our sad history, both where Nate comes from and right here. on Treaty Land, Treaty 6, that we accept the challenge of learning the truth to make life better. And you are the hope that we have, so that this dream of true reconciliation happens in your lifetime.
Thank you for those. You both just touched me in my heart very, very deeply, so thank you very much. We'd like to turn our conversation now to how learning about the other history has impacted you. So Eugene, if you could start talking about, when you first learned about the Holocaust, how did that affect you personally? And then Nate, I would ask you the same thing about the residential school experience.
Want me to go first? Or?
We'll have Nate. Either one, doesn't matter.
Go ahead. Okay. Alphabetical order, eh? To be truthful in regards to my learning in school, it's important to understand that everything I learned about Indigenous people was bad. We were called dumb and stupid, and that we would never amount to anything. That we're going to be drunks and we're going to be lazy, and all of the stereotype that exists out there today is what was leveled at us as children. And I learned more about other cultures around the world, including about the Holocaust and other happenings around the world, than I ever did about who we were as the first peoples of this country. And it was difficult as we got older and started understanding and learning other events that happened around the world, yet in our own space here in Saskatchewan. We didn't fit in. I didn't fit into my own community in Muskeg Lake. I didn't fit in the settler community anywhere. And the one commonality that I had with other kids my age, for me, was sports. But there's so many of my schoolmates and classmates that never experienced that escape of sports. I thank the Creator every day for the gifts that He bestowed on me, because I seen many of my people destroyed. They didn't have that escape, and we didn't have that understanding. And it's also important to understand that those experiences were buried so deep in my being that I had never even shared with my wife, who I've been married to for 45 years. I never shared it with her till 15 years ago. So I buried all of those emotions and all those feelings for over 50 years.
I want to say, Nate, I know that you have really quite a personal connection to the narrative of residential schools, and I'd like to hear what you have to say about that and how it's affected you as a survivor.
Yes, I'm going to continue Eugene's thoughts, and the commonality between Judaism and the native people and any people who are undergoing genocide is very familiar. There's common elements. And I feel that the native peoples have been undergoing a genocide, because a genocide does not necessarily mean the death of each individual. The conversion away from the tradition of the people that you are genociding, or the children, taking them away from their traditions and trying, in the words of the people who were indoctrinating, who had the doctrine of residential school, where they felt that they had to kill the Indian within the child within the Indian, or the Indian within the child. That in itself is a genocide, because the end result is the same: the destruction of a community or a way of life. And therefore, it becomes behooves us to talk about this commonality, about this common suffering. And then there's a message to the young people. What is the message to the young people today? We know it's going on, still going on. Discrimination, hatred is still going on. So what are we to accomplish here by baring our souls and telling you our stories and reliving the hard moments of our suffering? And it's very simple. You see, we all one part of one human race. And the reason why the Jewish people suffered over the centuries is because we were not accepted. We were not accepted as an equal of the other people. And the native has not been accepted for their traditions and their beliefs. So what is required today in our world is not tolerance of each other, but acceptance. Acceptance of the way we are, with the proviso that we have mutual acceptance. What does mutual acceptance mean? Is that I accept you the way you are, unconditionally, provided that you accept me the way I am, the way what I believe, and the way I pursue my traditions, unconditionally. And if we have that type of, and the thing is that we must not be bystanders, because what was happening to me in the Holocaust and the Shoah was that the world stood by and saw what was happening, and they said, it's not us, so therefore we don't have to do anything to intervene. Well, today's world is different. Today, I'm asking the young people not to be a bystander, not to be a perpetrator, but not to be a bystander. Because the bystander never helps those who are being persecuted. It only helps the persecutor. Because he, by your silence, by your bystanding, give credence to the person who's persecuting the other, that they are right. So bystanding is definitely complicit to whatever crimes are being completed in this world. And as far as the question, you remind me?
Well, how has learning about residential schools affected you in relation to your story as a survivor? Is there a specific connection
yes,
you'd
there
like
was,
to share?
There was definitely a specific. When I started writing my book, after 70 years, in my 80th year of my birth, I had to deal with certain aspects of my experience. And at that time, in 2010, by that time, the secrets of the residential schools were coming out. And I saw people like Eugene standing up and saying, you know what? I was sexually attacked. I was sexually harassed. I was physically harassed. And that gave me an impetus to reveal my story and to be able to finally put it on paper as to what happened to me as a young boy in a concentration camp of 15 years old, and how I was attacked and how I was raped by other prisoners. And that gave me courage to reveal what happened, just like Eugene finally found courage to come out and say what happened to him. So that is another common element.
I think it's inspiring. We can already see connections and how, as humans, through each other's stories, you found some inspiration, and I think that's a profound lesson for all of us here. I'd like to ask you both next. I assume that you didn't start talking about your experiences instantly, and it took some time And I'm wondering if there was a single event or a moment or something that happened that you realized you need to start, or was it part of a self-care? What precipitated talking to groups? And maybe I'll start with you, Eugene.
Yeah, thank you. Good answers, Nate. Yeah, I shared with you that I had not shared any of my experience, or very little of my experience with my wife, and that included my children. I carried the shame, and I tried to drown it out with alcohol and drugs. And it's not the most proud moments of my life, but at that time I didn't understand shame. And it wasn't until one day when I was listening at the University of Saskatchewan to a man talk about blameless shame. And very important to all you young people who are threatened with any kind of threat of physical, psychological abuse, especially sexual abuse, to understand blameless shame. And when this man said blameless shame, my light went on. When he said, "You are not the one who is a deviant or a pervert. You were just an innocent little child who did nothing wrong." That was a turning point for me. And the turning point has been trying to reprogram myself for 15 years now to understand who I am, make sure that I know who Eugene Arcand is, to not be brainwashed into believing that I had lost my language, to find my language which was inside of me, to understand natural law, to understand that the rain that we heard a few minutes ago is the earth's way of cleaning itself, and that we have to appreciate that water that's comes down from the heavens, but it's also to appreciate that without water, none of us would be born. And when the Creator, through natural law, changes blood into water to create the miracle of children to be born, it's important that I understand and live in both worlds and share what I'm learning from people like Maria and Walter and other elders. It hasn't been an easy journey. It was something that I shied away from. I was intimidated by my own culture. And yet today I'm strengthened to be able to sit in front of you and with you to share that journey, but understand blameless shame is a turning point for me, and it can be for you.
Some very powerful words, and I had a chance to listen to Nate a few years ago at the Holocaust Memorial here, and it's important for me, what you talk about with Eugene and with residential school survivors, giving you this opportunity and courage to tell your story. That's what I get when I hear and support survivors, and certainly with Eugene. And again, a few years ago, I was at a meeting where he held up a picture and told a bit of his story from this picture. And that was the first time I decided I'm going to talk about my Muslim and his story, and I brought up my picture that I have. And so thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Nate didn't answer yet.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
When did I start talking about my experiences? It happened when my father died. I survived with my father, and he was the family spokesman. And he told the stories, and I listened. And I never intervened. Whatever he said, I actually learned from his stories. I learned the other side of my experience. But he died in 1972. And suddenly I realized that I was the next voice, that if I don't speak, the history will be lost. And it became an obligation for me to speak for those who were less able to express themselves, to say publicly what they would say in a family environment. And occurred to me that I have the ability to do that. And that became an obligation, a very difficult obligation on my shoulders, that I should be able to reach the greater world and warn humanity of the capability of human beings how to destroy itself. Whether it was in Rwanda by the machete, or whether it was in Nazi Germany with the gas chamber, or whether it was a genocide by isolation and re-indoctrination or indoctrination of the children of the native nation, so that their tradition would have no way of continuing on, because they would lose their voice, they would lose their language, and they would lose their customs. So that has another commonality, and I felt that I had to go out and speak for the millions who were lost, who had no choice, no opportunity to speak. And it was wonderful for me to be able to take the Prime Minister of Canada to Auschwitz.
Be right back, Nate.
To Auschwitz, and to show him what happened there. And that I stood there just positioned when I was there as a 15-year-old boy standing in Auschwitz to Birkenau without any hope. And then some 7 years later, I was standing in the same spot with the Prime Minister of a wonderful, beautiful country, Canada, and having the greatest honor that can bestow on a survivor to be there with him in the presence of our Rabbi who intoned the prayers. And when our Prime Minister and I cried together about the lack of compassion of the world to what happened, and that he was able to say that we have to learn from the evil that was committed in this place so that we should become a better people, and that we should dedicate ourselves to changing the world for a better place to be.
Do you want to ask Nate the question and then you can repeat it?
Perhaps we'll wait till Eugene returns. He just needed a quick break and he'll be right back, but perhaps...
Absolutely. Nate, why don't you tell us a little bit about your family before the war? Well, let me put it this way. Nate, is there something you'd like to tell us?
Well, I'd like to tell you the moment of liberation. I was incarcerated in 43. 22 months later, I was liberated in a deep Bavarian forest from a concentration camp, having survived 7 concentration camps and 5 death marches and death trains, and being now at the last moment what I thought I was at the end of my life. And I almost lost hope, but my father encouraged me not to give up hope. And I went to the commandant who was standing at the gate before we were leaving the camp, and I said to him, "Sir, I cannot walk any further. I know I will not make the next destination, and please let me stay in the camp." And he said, "Okay, you can stay." And then I turned to him and I said, "My father would like to stay with me." And he said, "No, he's strong, he's big. he can go. But my father said, please don't separate us at this last moment. And he did not relinquish. And my father almost carried me away. And then, as we were starting to walk away, the Nazi changed his mind, and he said with a smirk on his face, you can both stay. I took that to mean that no matter where you're going to be, your end is going to be the same, which what we expected. But we stayed in the infirmary in the camp, and then 2 days later the Americans came by, and they opened the gates, and somebody shouted, we're free, the Americans are here. And it was jubilation, but it was a very suppressed jubilation. Because when we were liberated, I was very sick. I had typhus fever. I was experiencing the first symptoms of typhus fever. And I knew that even so I survived the Nazis, I may not survive that illness. On May the 8th, just a few weeks ago, we celebrated the victory of Europe on May the 8th. But to us, to me and my father and the other survivors of the concentration camps and of the forests and of the hidden children, this was an empty victory. We have, at that point, realized and started to think about who in our families would survive. And we knew that the chances of other people surviving were very slim. And here we were, without family, without a place to go. And we were absolutely lost. And that's what I was saying, that we were in a time where we had no place and nowhere to go. See, in 1938 and 1939, the world did not have room to accept even 1,000 refugees that came to the shores of Cuba, United States, and Canada. They had a policy of none is too many. And they were shipped back, and a third of those people lost their lives in the Nazi regime. And so in 1945, the situation has not changed. It was the same world. There was no room for Jewish refugees. None of it in Canada, for sure. And Canada had the policy of none is too many, as to how many refugees should be taken in after the Second War, after the Holocaust. So we were stranded in DP camps in Germany for 3 long years, trying to find a place where to go. And that was a very difficult time. It was finally resolved when Canadian and other United Nations decided to close the DP camps in Europe and to admit some refugees. Canada, at that point, agreed to take 20,000 Jewish refugees, actually 25,000. Among them was my father and I. So that was a very important moment in my life, because it gave me the ability to start to reconstitute life. My father, we have lost all our families. My father's only surviving brother out of 8 siblings was here in Canada since 1912. And we had to start to rebuild a family, and must tell you that I was very happy that I met a wonderful woman.
Who's here today?
Yes, right there. And we had 3 wonderful daughters who gave us 9 grandchildren. and now a great-grandchild. And we are a family that are blessed, that has risen out of the ashes like a phoenix. And so I thank Canada for the attitude that it showed towards me in being able to have a wonderful life.
Thank you.
So the question is about freedom, right?
If you want it to be, then it is.
Well, I want you young people to know that there are standards of society that are not necessarily right. And I never met my father. I really don't know who my father was. So I'm a product of a single-parent family. And you've got to keep in mind that when I was 17 years old, I had really only seen my mother in those 11 years for a total of 22 months in the summertime. April 1st, 1969 was when I first experienced any kind of freedom in my life. By then, I was one of the most dysfunctional people you ever want to meet in your life. I didn't know who I was, and it didn't matter. I had no fear of anything, of anyone. I had done 11 years of pen time as a child. And I was so disrespectful of everyone. I too, like Nate, am a lucky man to meet a woman who put up with my shenanigans for 45 years. And if it wasn't for that love, and many times I didn't even understand love when I came out of there. I didn't know what love was. I had no idea of parenting. And so it's important to acknowledge that my wife kept our family together. I too have 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. I too have 7 grandchildren and 1 great-grandson.
Nice.
And it's an opportunity for me to be a parent again. And it's also, I'm also so grateful that my children have forgiven me for being an absentee, irresponsible parent. It's important to understand when I share with you that I never knew my parent, my father. And why that's so important for me to share that with you is because you wouldn't be in this room right now if you weren't loved. Don't take that love and those hugs for granted. You don't know what it's like to go through life never having been told you're loved, and that every hug had some type of deviant plan behind it. So wherever this conversation goes, I ask every one of you today, when you get home, hug your mom, hug your dad, hug your auntie, hug your uncle, hug your sister, hug your brother, and tell them that you love them. It's really important that you do that, because we just don't do it enough. And like I said, you have no idea what it's like to go through a childhood never having been told you're loved. Vitally, vitally important. It's good medicine.
I'd like to continue with that.
Go for it, Nate.
And I'd like you to realize what it means to be a survivor. So I'm going to ask you to do a mental exercise. I want you to take into your hands your parents, your grandparents, your brothers and sisters, your cousins, your uncles and aunts, great parents, and make a calculation. How many people do you have? 50, 60? And then suddenly, in a very short period of time, they're all gone. And you, like by yourself, like Eugene said, didn't know who he was. You see, birth is an accident. You are born to whoever you were born. You had no choice. You could not choose your parents. So then, I say that we are who we are by the accident of birth. Now, I also tell the students when I go and speak about the Holocaust that they should think about that. That suddenly they're left by themselves in the world with one person, with a brother or a sister, or maybe with a father like I was. And I want them to go home, and it's the same thing as Eugene said, to hug them. And then they say, what happened to you? What became of you? What's this sudden emotion? And I want you to tell them that if you were born either as a native person or as a Jew in Europe, you may have lost all of those people that you're going to hug, and that you are grateful they are there for you. And you tell them the stories that we told you here or in other occasions. Because we have to be grateful that we have you, and you have your parents, and you have your family, and to go on through life with their support.
Number 6?
Number 6. So this is a good moment here of talking about being grateful for your family and turning to a more positive thought here. We wanted to touch on hope. Because certainly neither one of you would have been able to survive and thrive through the difficult moments. And so we were curious if you could talk about what helped you to be hopeful at the time and what makes you hopeful now.
Okay. Young people like you make me hopeful. You have technology at your disposal. You know way more than your parents know because of technology. Use that technology responsibly. Teach your parents. A lot of the negative behaviors like bullying, racism, and other attitudinal behaviors begin in the home. And you're all technologically astute. Use those tools to teach your parents in case they don't have that opportunity. I take more care now to listen to my children and my grandchildren because they teach us. And I want to clarify one thing. A little while ago, a little boy came to visit me. There's a little boy that had a stunted growth. And I never know when that little boy is going to come and visit. And he come and visit me in your presence a while ago. And he came in the form of tears. And I want to explain that to you because I ask no one here for any pity. Those days are done. I ask you for your understanding about my people, the first peoples of this land, Turtle Island. Understand that they are all part of the impacts of residential schools. They are all part of the impacts of the 60s scoop. They are all part of the impacts of the missing and murdered Indigenous woman of this land. So when that little boy comes and teaches me a lesson in the form of tears, it's not to have to look for pity. It's to look for understanding so that you can become better friends with your Indigenous classmate, so that you can understand your Syrian classmate that had to come from a war-torn country to our territory and needs that love and to feel welcome too. And because somebody has another different color of skin, we all bleed the same color. The organs in our bodies are all the same. Be they Asian, be they black, be they settler, or be they the red man like ourselves. Be friends. Make those friendships emotional friendships, understanding friendships, not friendships of degradation that one is above another because of the color of their skin, because we're all created by the Creator. And for those of you who are going through teenage turmoil, that have had that little demon come into your minds and into your spirits and into your space called suicide, get rid of that thought. Do not take the easy way out, because we all have to understand and respect that only the Creator can give life and only the Creator can take life. And if Nate and I can live through the turmoils that we shared with you today, and many and thousands of others of my people and his people, this obstacle is easy to get over. And encourage you not to take the easy way out, because, like I said, you are loved. Hi, hi.
Hope. Hope. The most important ingredient in any struggle. As long as you have hope, there may be a solution to your problem. And just as I feel hope and encouragement when other people speak out against anti-Semitism and try to vilify us, I feel my obligation to speak out for the other people who are not Jewish, whoever they may be, as Eugene said, whether they come from a different land, have different color of skin. We are all brothers, and we are all brothers keepers. This world has seen too much hate and not enough love and hope. And I hope that by this interaction, we give the Native people hope to go out and fight for what's rightfully theirs, to reestablish the language, to reestablish their pride in who they are, not to be subservient to anyone or any religion or any nation, but to be proud of who they are. And by being proud, as Eugene said, you will have no need or reason to end this life or to leave your traditions. And that message of hope, I think, has to carry this world forward, as Eugene and I have been speaking.
I want to say something that Nate told me, and I'm still touched by it. Nate and I had lunch a few weeks ago, and I was talking to him about the questions, and I said to him, Nate, when did you first feel hope? And he looked at me, and he said, I never lost hope. I think that's quite extraordinary. We're almost at the end of our time, and I wanted to say that I'm finding it so poignant that you are both wearing caps. And at one point, Nate said to me, I always wear a hat, because if I don't wear a hat, I'm just that old man. But if I wear a hat, I'm the guy with the hat. Well, I think it's fairly safe to say...
He's Eugene and I'm Nate.
I think it's fairly safe to say that these extraordinary men, with or without their hats, are absolutely remarkable.
Stand up.
No, we're standing for you. We're standing. You sit down. We're standing for you.
take off my hat.
We each have a gift to give to the two of you. This is, first of all, I'm giving you, Eugene, a copy of Nate's book. And now that you've shared this moment together, I'm pretty sure he'll even autograph it for you. It's an extraordinary story that can be made available to all the classes and the teachers in the room. And this is a kippah. This is a covering we wear on our heads when we pray in our synagogue. This one comes from Auschwitz-Birkenau. It was David Fisher's, and it's quite remarkable because, as we know, Nate is a survivor of Auschwitz. And so we give this to you, and anytime you enter our home, you're part of our family, and you wear this, and please be welcome. A new hat, he said. I've got a new hat.
So that was a very special gift, and I think this is a very important moment here for us to be providing this offering for one another. So the gift that I have for Nate here, this is a buffalo that we got from Monaskewin. And I know that you both talked about this buffalo as a symbol yesterday. And the second thing is a book. This is Treaty Promises, Indian Reality. This was written by my musham, by my grandfather. And it was important for me to get you this book because I found when I met you a couple of years ago that you resemble my musham very closely. And there's a picture of him in here that you can see. And I also actually included a letter.
Who knows, we may be the same spirit.
Yeah,
absolutely. Spirit.
Absolutely. And there's a letter in here. This is a letter that my other musham, my musham on my dad's side, wrote when he was in residential school, protesting how he was being mistreated. So with deep gratitude, I provide this to you.
And I must say that I thank the fathers of this church for allowing us to come and speak here. The church was not always my favorite abode because it represented something that I was not accepted as a human being or as a worthy human being because I had a different religion. So it's very important for me to stand here and thank you for allowing to tell you my story so that this church and all the other churches of the world recognize, as Pope Pius II, John Paul II said, we are all brothers. We may be older brothers or younger brothers, but we all are brothers. And as I said before, we must be our brothers' keepers. Thank you.
I invite you to give an official thank you, but since you're not wearing a microphone in your underwear, you have to do it from there.
Hey, Charlie.
Here, why don't we sit down? Charlie's going to thank us.
I'm Charlie, I'm the mayor.
He's Charlie's the mayor.
Oh my God, thank you. Yes.
Hey, the mayor.
The mayor.
I'm honored. Thank you for coming.
He's going to thank you.
I don't have many words that I feel can add to what we've just had a chance together to experience here in Holy Family. I again want to thank our Catholic community for opening this sacred space to have this conversation, the Human Rights Commission for having the idea and the wisdom and the Think Do Good group that brought this together. And I think the only thing I will say it was said here that we don't get to decide when we're going to be born. I get visited by these tears as well. But we have been born at this time to be in this territory, Treaty 6 territory, and we get to live at this moment and decide what we're going to do with our lives. And to have a chance to hear from Nate Leipciger and Eugene Arcand, who have the incredible courage to take the horrible experiences that they had at the hands of others and share in a vulnerable way what that meant for them and how they overcame that and found courage to sit in front of all of us and call on us to find the love within ourselves, to not allow that to happen within us or around us. That's our challenge as a society. And we know that this challenge is ongoing. But if we can each day wake up remembering what we learned today and carry that into the next day and the next day, that's the gift that they've given us. But it's something we have to each carry with us. And so thank you again, and may we walk forward with the strength and courage of Nate Leipciger and Eugene Arcand. Thank you very much.
I'd like to invite Father David. I'd like to invite Father David to come up and give some final words. We're in his home today. So thank you for sharing your home with us. It's poignant, and we ask you to invite and introduce our last. You're good. Okay, good. Okay.
First of all, I am so honored and privileged and a little bit humbled to have the presence of Eugene and Nate here with us. Nate, welcome back. It's good to see you again. I want to first of all acknowledge the presence of my brother Claudio and for our ongoing friendship and for a beautiful, beautiful relationship of our Jewish community and the Roman Catholic community, not only in this city, but in the whole diocese. And I truly believe that we have worked very, very hard to be a beacon of light in a society that is often filled with darkness. Eugene, a few years ago, we placed a treaty plaque in this cathedral, recognizing in your own very words, it's not pity. It is about a call to love. The great words of St. Paul in our tradition says that in the end there are three things that endure: faith, hope, and love. Love, as Rabbi Claudio spoke, begins with the recognition that on the first day God created a soul. And that we are united in a bond that is unbreakable, a bond that is the upholding of the dignity of each and every one of us. No creed, no color, no culture can destroy the inherent goodness in each of our creation. And we bless our Creator. We bless our God, the God of Jacob, the God of Abraham, the God of Jesus Christ, the God of all, for the commission and the call to love unconditionally. Hope, which is probably today for all of us most revealed in the presence of these two men. And although we do not share the same story, there is the hope, and I know the greatest hope for both Nate and Eugene, is that no child in the future should ever have to experience what the two of you experienced. The greatest gift that we give to each other is to pledge ourselves today in your presence to not only tell your story, but to work towards a better world. And maybe that is where the word faith comes in. Faith, sometimes we automatically assume, has something to do with religiosity. But today, faith takes it to our very core. Faith in ourselves that we will have the courage to stand up when the world bullies us. To stand up in the face of injustice. And regardless of where we come from or where we are going, to recognize and to hold deep within us that each and every one created is afforded the same that we desire for ourselves. I am blessed today to be in your presence. I acknowledge too the presence of our elected officials, David Arnott from the Human Rights Commission, who is here, and all of you, the children. We have the ability today to be a light in the darkness. With faith, with hope, and with the greatest of love. May you share that light with the world. To bring closure to our day, I'm going to invite Delvin forward to lead us. Really, I guess, Delvin, we'd say it's a prayer, and a prayer of faith and a prayer of hope. And once again, my thanks to you, Eugene, and to you, Nate. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I love you, and I love you for you. Beautiful. Shalom. May God keep you. May His countenance shine upon you, and may He gives you peace.
Thank you, Father.
You're very welcome.
Living us into your nice reserve house.
Yeah, thank you. It's a 3D6. It's your place too.
All right. Thank you.
So when that holy smoke went up, and when the elder said a prayer, it transformed this space into a lodge. So I'm going to sing a closing ceremonial song for what has transpired in this lodge. So it's almost like an ending prayer, but in a Cree way.
I will remove my hat because I think that's your tradition.
Way ya, way ya, hey ya, way ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, way ya, hey ya, hey ya, way ya, hey ya, hey ya, way ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, way 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 ya, hey ya, way ya. Que heok te ma que na wenan e que se wa te se en e que te ma que se an way ya, hey ya, hey ya. Hey ya, 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 hey ya. Hey ya, 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 hey ya. Hey ya, hey ya, makenawenan que se watesen equata ketaya hey oh 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 yo.
Thank you for being with us today. Unbelievable.
You're all leaving now? As soon as
Hanging out with you.
Well, you know what?
Oh,
The feelings
nice to
are
meet you.
mutual.
I know.
The sentiments are
When I ended the talk,
Thank you very much.
I said, can you give us a minute?
Thanks again, Cece. Excellent.
This is my mom.
Yeah, she just told me.
You're a blessing.
Where's our bishop?
Sure, let's do it.
And listen, I want you to know,
Since then he's
if you
now
come for
Archbishop.
dinner, there's no talk about anything difficult. It's a nice celebration. I'm not going to give you the tobacco because I